Columbus, Ohio, February 1970. The cold air carries a strange stillness that night, as if the city itself is holding its breath. By morning, two young foreign students, thousands of miles from home, would be found brutally murdered inside their small apartment. And for over half a century, nobody would be able to say who killed them or why. This is not just another forgotten case. This is a story of two bright souls, Mary and Bill, ripped from this world in a way so violent, so chilling, it left a dark stain on a college town that has never fully faded. And now, thanks to a modern-day podcast that's shaken this cold case back to life, disturbing new details are surfacing. Ones that make you wonder if the killer was closer than anyone imagined. Stay with me as we go back to that cold February night, when two dreams ended, and a nightmare began that's still unsolved to this day. Full story start. Mary Petrie and Bill Sprout weren't just names in an old police file. They were two young visionaries, barely in their 20s, who left their homes in France to chase knowledge and new experiences in the United States. Mary, just 23, had a spark about her. Friends say she had a laugh that filled a room, a fearless curiosity about the world, and a love for late-night coffee talks about art, books, and life's big questions. Bill, 24, was quieter, thoughtful, the kind of man who always carried a notebook full of ideas and sketches. They were kindred spirits to travelers finding their place in a foreign land. They'd been in Columbus for only a short time, living in a small off-campus apartment that should have been a safe haven. But beneath the surface, the late 60s campus scene wasn't just peace and love, it was unpredictable, sometimes dangerous. The area around their apartment was known for its dark alleys and the occasional violent outburst. The kind of place where, if you weren't careful, you could vanish into the night and no one would ask questions until it was too late. To their families back home, they were living the dream, an American adventure full of opportunity. But they had no idea that a predator, maybe someone they knew, maybe a complete stranger, was watching, waiting, ready to turn their promise-filled lives into the city's most haunting cold case. Who would want these two gentle souls dead? Was it jealousy, rage, or something far more disturbing? As we peel back the layers of their story, the picture that emerges is more terrifying than anyone imagined. February 8, 1970. The evening started like any other for Mary and Bill. Neighbors reported seeing a warm light in their apartment window, the faint sound of music drifting out, maybe a record spinning, something soft and comforting, masking the unease of a winter night in a foreign city. But by dawn, that comforting scene would turn into a crime scene that detectives would never forget. Just after 7 a.m., a concerned neighbor knocked on their door. No answer. Hours later, police arrived. What they found inside was described as beyond comprehension. The apartment looked frozen in time, the record still spinning, a coffee cup on the table half full. But Mary and Bill lay lifeless, their bodies brutally beaten. There were signs of a struggle, a chair overturned, shattered glass, blood smears trailing across the tiny living room. Yet, oddly, nothing appeared stolen. Wallets, passports, jewelry, all untouched. Whoever came into that apartment didn't want their money. They wanted something else entirely. Detectives were left with haunting questions. Did Mary and Bill know their killer? Had they let someone in, someone they trusted, only for the night to turn into terror? Or was this a random act of pure violence from a predator who slipped in under the cover of darkness? The brutality of the attack stunned even seasoned homicide investigators. But the killer had vanished. No fingerprints, no weapon, no witnesses, just two promising young lives extinguished. And a city now living in fear that a murderer was roaming free, perhaps closer than anyone dared to think. This was no ordinary crime. This was a message. But what was it saying? And why did it have to end in blood? In the days after Mary and Bill's murder, Columbus, Ohio, was a city on edge. Students locked their doors for the first time. Women refused to walk alone after dark, and rumors swirled through campus like wildfire. Was there a killer targeting foreign students? A stalker roaming the streets? Or someone living among them? Detectives worked around the clock. Interviews, polygraphs, a list of possible suspects stretching across pages, but every promising lead turned to smoke. A neighbor recalled seeing a shadowy figure near the apartment. Another claimed they heard raised voices that night. Yet nothing could be confirmed, and the case grew colder by the week. Months passed, then years, and eventually, decades. The files on Mary and Bill's murders were pushed to the back of a dusty police archive, labeled Unsolved. The victims' families, half a world away, stopped receiving updates. It was as if their loved ones had been erased, their story swallowed whole by time and silence. But the most unsettling part, locals say the apartment never felt the same again. Tenants reported strange noises at night, doors opening by themselves, a lingering sense that the terror of that February night never truly left. For 50 years, this case sat frozen, an open wound no one dared to touch, until one podcast host decided to dig it all back up. And in doing so, uncovered something far more sinister than anyone imagined. For 50 long years, Mary and Bill's murders were little more than a grim memory, buried under stacks of other unsolved crimes. That is, until journalist and true crime podcaster Claire Matthews decided she couldn't let this story die. Her podcast, Echoes of the Unsolved, began as a passion project, a way to shed light on forgotten victims. But when she stumbled upon this case, something didn't add up. Something told her this wasn't just a random killing lost to time. And so, she pulled the thread, and everything began to unravel. Claire dug deep, uncovering files no one had touched in decades, tracking down surviving witnesses, even locating police photos long thought missing. And then came the first bombshell. A hidden detail buried in the original crime scene report, a bloody partial fingerprint on a windowsill that, somehow, had never been tested with modern forensics. The podcast episodes gripped thousands of listeners across the US and UK each week. New theories emerged. An unknown man reportedly seen arguing with Bill 2 nights before the murder. A neighbor's cryptic statement about a third person in the apartment that night. And, perhaps most chilling of all, an unverified police note suggesting that Mary had received threatening letters weeks before her death. Listeners began flooding the show with tips, long-forgotten rumors, even confessions from people claiming they knew who did it. But if this case was just a random act of violence, why did it seem like someone had worked so hard to keep it quiet for 50 years? Claire's relentless digging cracked open a case thought long dead, and someone out there clearly didn't want the truth to surface. Because soon after the podcast aired, a disturbing thing happened. Anonymous emails warning Claire to stop asking questions, or else. This wasn't just a story anymore. It was a dangerous hunt for a killer who might still be alive and listening. Let's rewind the clock. February 7, 1970. The final 24 hours of Mary and Bill's lives. 12:15 p.m., the cafe sighting. The pair were seen at a small campus cafe, sipping coffee and sharing a notebook filled with plans for a trip they wanted to take in the spring. Witnesses say Mary seemed cheerful, but Bill appeared tense, distracted. Was he worried about something, or someone? 4:40 p.m., the argument. A neighbor later reported hearing raised voices from the apartment. Two male voices, one of them believed to be Bill's. The other, never identified. Could this have been their killer, already inside, laying the groundwork for what was to come? 6 p.m., the unknown visitor. A delivery driver claimed he saw a man leaving Mary and Bill's apartment around this time. The description: white male, mid-20s, wearing a dark coat and hat. Police never traced him, and no one admitted to visiting them that night. 9:15 p.m., lights on, music playing. A neighbor across the hall recalls hearing a record playing softly. Around 9:30, it suddenly stopped. Then, a loud thud, followed by silence. No one checked on them until morning. 1 a.m., the unlocked door. When police arrived the next day, they found the apartment door unlocked. No forced entry, no signs of a break-in. Whoever killed Mary and Bill likely walked in freely. Maybe even left calmly, knowing no one would suspect a thing. In less than 12 hours, 2 lives were destroyed. The timeline gives us fragments, a puzzle of whispers, shadows, and unanswered questions. But the truth feels like it's just out of reach, hidden by someone who didn't want this case solved. Someone who might still be walking free. 50 years later, the case of Mary and Bill still raises one terrifying question: who killed them? And why? Over time, several chilling theories have emerged, each one darker than the last. Theory 1. A jealous rival. Some believe Bill had a secret falling out with a fellow student, a man who may have had feelings for Mary. Witnesses recalled heated arguments in the weeks before the murders. Could jealousy have turned to rage, leading to a brutal attack fueled by obsession? Theory 2. A stalker in the shadows. Another theory points to a mysterious figure reportedly seen following Mary on several occasions. A tall man in a dark coat, always lingering just far enough away. If this stalker gained entry that night, perhaps Mary and Bill's deaths were part of a twisted fantasy long in the making. Theory 3. A cover-up. Claire's podcast uncovered something unsettling: an unfiled police note suggesting an unknown third person had been at the scene before investigators arrived. Why was this detail erased from the final report? Some speculate Mary and Bill may have stumbled onto something dangerous, something someone in power didn't want exposed. Voice distorted. There are things about that case they told us not to talk about. Things that don't add up. Theory 4. A serial killer connection. Perhaps most disturbing of all, Mary and Bill's murder matches the profile of at least 3 other unsolved double homicides from 1968 to 1973 across Ohio and Pennsylvania. Same brutality, same eerie lack of evidence. Was this the work of a roaming predator, never caught, never named, and possibly still alive today? Each theory pulls us closer to the truth. Yet every answer opens up a darker question. Did someone they know betray them? Did a stranger bring death to their door? Or has someone been watching for 50 years, making sure their secret never sees daylight? Claire Matthews' podcast didn't just reawaken the Mary and Bill case, it blew the dust off a tragedy the world had forgotten. Her episodes reignited public outrage, drawing in new witnesses who had stayed silent for decades. One anonymous caller even claimed to know where a missing piece of evidence, the weapon, might still be hidden. This sparked renewed police interest. Modern DNA technology, forensic specialists, and retired detectives came out of hiding, determined to give Mary and Bill the justice they were denied in 1970. For the first time in half a century, there was hope, but hope is fragile. Every lead seems to raise more questions than answers. And if the killer is still alive, could they be watching the investigation, waiting to strike again? 2 young lives, stolen in a single night. A half-century of silence. A case that refuses to die. The truth about Mary and Bill's murders is still out there, lurking in the shadows, buried under secrets someone will kill to protect. Will this case finally be solved, or is a killer still hiding in plain sight? If you want the world to remember Mary and Bill, if you believe every secret deserves the light, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because their story isn't over. And neither is this hunt for the truth.